It's that time of year again, the annual gathering of Eresh simps desperate to shower their waifu with quartz, blissfully unaware that the superior goddess has a raid up right around the corner. Hello everyone, Sober Oni of G&A Reviews here, bringing you an updated spotlight for the true poster girl of FGO, Eresh. Now, no matter which flavor of Rin you prefer, vanilla, chocolate, blueberry, or bait, I think we can all agree that Eresh has been the one to benefit the most over the past year, receiving not only a buff in JP, but significant changes to the support meta that help her as well. So how does she stack up to the other Lancers now, and is she worth rolling for with Castoria fast approaching? If you're excited to find out, then first, well, why don't you tell them, Eresh?
チャンネル登録と高評価ボタンをよろしくね。
Thanks, Eresh, and now let's take a look at your buffs. Eresh has received 2 buffs since my initial review of her, one direct and one indirect, but both very major. Firstly, she's received a much needed NP upgrade in JP last year, and now her NP hits for much higher damage and deals bonus damage against Earth attribute enemies. In addition to the damage, Eresh's NP will also grant the party 20% crit resistance chance and immunity from instant death for 3 turns. Unfortunately though, this upgrade is likely more than a year away for NA players, since it came out alongside the 6th anniversary, and we aren't even at 5 yet. Coincidentally, Anniversary 6 also featured Eresh's other buff, Major Buster Servant Support, in the form of Konyanskaya and later on Oberon, who both paved the way for viable Buster farming teams. But let's start off with the NP upgrade first, because it's more than just a standard NP buff. The addition of the Earth damage modifier really takes Eresh's damage to the next level. For comparison's sake, pre-buff Eresh's NP damage hovered around 20,000 against neutral enemies, but post-buff against Earth enemies, that damage is just shy of 40,000 neutral, so it's effectively doubled. This is incredibly high damage output for an AoE servant. In fact, at one point in my damage testing for this video, my Eresh was able to hit something like 1.4 million damage, even though she's only NP1 and I wasn't even using Oberon. Her high damage gets even scarier when you consider just how many enemies have the Earth attribute. There are over 100 Earth servants in FGO, all of whom will eat this bonus damage from Eresh. But more importantly, a large amount of common enemies featured in free quests are also Earth attributes. So Eresh is able to take full advantage of this bonus damage whether she's farming an event or taking on challenge quests and boss encounters. I'd also like to point out that Hydras are Earth attribute, so I'd like to be the first one to welcome Eresh as an official member of the Fuck Hydra Club. This buff alone would have made Eresh a contender for a top tier Lancer, but the additional Buster supports really push her over the top. Eresh was already a strong farmer due to that 50% NP charge, so having access to Konyanskaya and Oberon makes her ridiculously consistent. I'd go as far as to say that Eresh is basically Ishtar, but for Lancers, which is very poetic. Both are incredibly good Buster farmers with 50% NP charges, higher than average DPS, and a multifaceted skill set that allows them to work well in challenge quests. Eresh's only real issue prior to the buff was a lack of damage and her inability to farm as well as arts and quick servants. But with the updates to the meta and her NP upgrade, it's safe to say that neither of those are issues anymore. And in fact, a case can be made for Eresh being the best farmer among all the Lancer servants, depending on what supports you have access to. Of course, I do know that many players won't have Konyanskaya or Oberon, in which case her farming consistency does take a hit. However, even without double Konyanskaya, Eresh is a force to be reckoned with, and all things being equal, she will outperform most other Buster servants both in farming and general DPS thanks to that anti-Earth damage. Eresh is also very versatile in the supports that she can work with, since she isn't necessarily just limited to Buster supports. Servants like Miss Crane, Domon, and Santa Nightingale also have excellent synergy with Eresh. Crane can easily set up farming teams for Eresh if you don't have Konyanskaya. Eresh being chaotic and evil also means that she benefits fully from all of Domon's crazy attack and crit buffs, and Nightingale can be a great addition for boss fights given her defensive utility, which complements Eresh's great crown skill. As for craft essences, providing Eresh with starting NP gauge and NP damage is critical, so aerial drive, kaleidoscope, and even black grail are all excellent options depending on how much damage you need versus NP charge. Command codes don't matter too much for Eresh since she mostly relies on her NP. However, Flower of the Underworld is nice and thematic since it gives Eresh extra damage against undead enemies, or you can go with Majin's Son on her arts card just for even more consistent NP gain from arts crits. Overall, Eresh is in a far better position now than she was at release, which is saying something because I thought she was actually really good at release. The significant upgrade to her NP damage puts her leaps and bounds above most other farming servants and makes her a top tier wave clearer for almost any situation. The addition of anti-earth damage is big since it encompasses most types of enemies and servants, and the shift towards better buster supports is just the icing on the cake that makes Eresh an absolute beast in the current meta. So Eresh moves up a full letter grade for me, from a B+ to an A+ post upgrade. It is frustrating that this upgrade is still more than a year away for NA players, but it is definitely worth it. And I'm happy for all of the Eresh stands out there who can now finally say that Eresh is just as good as Ishtar. Melusine is still queen though. And those are my thoughts on Eresh. She is still on rate up for the next couple of days, so for those of you who are still rolling, I wish you the best of luck. But what do you guys think of Eresh? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, please do leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Follow us over on Twitter, chill with us on Twitch, and join the party on our Discord, all linked in the description down below. And until next time, this is Sober Oni, signing out. Later.